Yeah, I felt like, every year I played 5 years of college, and every year I just progressively got a little bit better. Like I wasn't, like a top player in the nation. I didn't just like have one leap one year where I was just beating everybody. Like I just kind of had a steady progression.
Today we are joined by Billy Tom Sargent. BT played college golf at Western Kentucky, where he was all conference and during his senior year played in the NCAA championships as an individual and finished tied for 11th. After graduating college, Billy Tom has gone on to play on the Corn Ferry Tour, making it through second stage all 3 years of trying. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Fun fact that you might not know is that as I've said, I don't know if we've ever met. We both have been around Kentucky. We might have met here or there a few times in junior golf. But when I was 13, I was just starting to play competitive golf, and we went out to a tournament at Cherry Blossom in Georgetown, just some junior tournament. And my dad was there, and he picks up this tee and it says, Billy Tom Sargent the third. Huh, wonder who this guy is. And so then you played in the tournament that weekend and won. And he's like, "Oh, hey, this Billy Tom guy is pretty good." And ever since then, my dad has always followed you to a degree. Wherever there was a leaderboard or something that where I was at that you were there, he's like, "Huh, wonder how Billy Tom's doing." So I guess my dad's been a fan from afar, and I know those tees. I think from what I heard, you had a lot of tees. But jumping back kind of to junior golf, etc. How'd you get into the game of golf?
I started playing golf when I was around 4 years old. My dad was a high school golf coach at Scott County, so I kind of grew up with that. I'd go and watch the guys and follow around, and just started loving the golf from early age. Um, didn't really start like getting into competitive golf or playing tournaments. I was like 10, but always kind of grew up with the game with my dad coaching.
Very cool. So you played out of Georgetown, which is Scott County area, and I think you played out of Cherry Blossom. When did you figure out that you were starting to be, become a good golfer and were going to be competitive?
Um, so I started playing tournaments when I was 10, and when I started, I was shooting, like 50 on 9 holes, 55, like not really playing very good, but just kind of kept at it. And then kind of when I turned like 11 or 12, started shooting some decent scores, winning some Pepsi tournaments. Probably 11 or 12, I really started taking it serious kind of when I got to middle school and playing a lot more.
So you had a lot of good guys I know from Scott County that I can think of, or at least competitive players. What was it like growing up, playing out there, having a bunch of good players to play with, and kind of seeing? I think of the crew, you're more on the younger end, so seeing those guys go off into high school and then go on to play college golf.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, there's a lot of good golfers in Scott County. So I remember the summers we'd go play, 54 holes a day. We'd start in the morning and play all day and play all kinds of different games and stuff. So, I was definitely probably one of the younger guys. And there's a lot of good older guys ahead of me. So it's nice kind of learning from them and seeing, what they're doing and how they're shooting lower scores and things like that. Kind of really helped me figure out what I need to improve in my game.
I'm just going to note for um, what you said previously. The Pepsi Tour is the local state-run junior tour here in Kentucky. For those who don't know, when did you kind of transition from those tournaments into the AJGAs? I know you won an AJGA here in the state, and did you travel much nationally, or did you just stick to tournaments in the state?
Probably when I turned like 13 or 14, I started playing on the Plantation Junior Golf Tour, which is kind of like a fall, winter, spring series tournaments. They go down south. There'd be some in like Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky. So it was more of like a national level junior tour. So I started playing those. Didn't start playing AJGA until I was probably 16. Played a few like my sophomore year, and then played several my junior year, and then senior year I was already committed to Western Kentucky, so I didn't play a ton my senior year.
So as you mentioned, you committed to Western Kentucky, ended up playing there, and had a nice little college career. Tell us about what first led you to go play at WKU, and then beyond that, what your time there was like and how you progressed.
Yeah, so I had a few options in high school. There's a few schools looking at me, but not a ton. And went down to take a visit at Western Kentucky and met with Coach Hatchett, and he was an awesome guy, and I really liked everything he had to say. The campus was great. You had Old Stone there, you had Bowling Green Country Club, Indian Hills, three really good courses. And I mean, just kind of a perfect fit for me. So I was driving back home after my visit to Western. We stopped like halfway to get gas, and I called up Coach Hatchett and I said, I'm going to be a Hilltopper. So I committed kind of right there in the spot, and never regretted it and loved it ever since.
When you're going through college, it's a little bit different than high school in the sense that, high school tournaments, there's some good players out there, but there's really not a lot of really good players that are able to win for the most part. In college, most of the tournaments you're playing in, depending on what level you're playing in, WKU is D1 and in a solid conference. When it came to those tournaments that and the schedule you guys had were solid, when it came to those tournaments, was it a little different playing high school than college?
Yeah, it was a big difference for sure. Like my freshman year, we had five seniors on the team. So it was, there was a lot of older guys ahead of me. That first fall semester, I think I missed qualifying by one or two shots like three times. So I didn't play any events until our home tournament where I played as an individual. And then that winter break, I was in a car wreck. I hit a deer and broke my hand. So I got a medical red shirt. So that kind of, it's kind of a blessing because I didn't get to play any of that first year. So I redshirted and then had 4 full years after that. But yeah, the golf's completely different. The competition is really good. Um, we played a lot of tough courses that kind of challenged us that I didn't play in high school. So that was kind of an adjustment. Practicing and playing at Old Stone really kind of helped, figure out how to manage tough courses. And, you're not just trying to birdie every hole all the time. You got to kind of, play your way around the course and kind of figure it out that way.
So by the time you were a senior in college, you made it all the way to the national championship as an individual, and I believe you finished top 15 in the national championship. What was that progression like from struggling to qualify for the team to being one of the top college players in the country?
Yeah, I felt like, every year I played 5 years of college, and every year I just progressively got a little bit better. Like I wasn't, like a top player in the nation. I didn't just like have one leap one year where I was just beating everybody. Like I just kind of had a steady progression in college and kept getting more confidence and kind of improving things in my game that I wasn't thinking about before, like little things like that. Worked on short game and putting a lot, which I noticed that helped my scores out more than anything. And just kind of a steady progression throughout college. Just keep learning as much as I could, getting better where I can. And
During that time, did you have a swing coach that you worked with, or were you more out on your own?
so when I was in high school, I never had a swing coach until my senior year. And then I started going to Matt Killen, who was down in Bowling Green at the time at Old Stone. And so I saw him for 2 or 3 years. And then after that, through college, didn't have a swing coach. And then here recently, I've started working with Corey Kaufman out of Louisville.
Okay, yeah, we're very familiar. Corey, he's been on and is a great guy and very knowledgeable. So glad to hear that you're with him. During that time in college, as Cooper said, you won some tournaments. You played really well. I know your senior year, you won your redshirt senior, so your final year you won the Pine Tree Intercollegiate and you won the Mason Rudolph as well, I think, which is Vanderbilt's tournament. Both of those are really nice wins to have. And so, and even the year before, I think you'd notched a good number of top tens and even one win. During college, a lot of guys struggle as far as, it's the first time they've been away from their swing coach. It's the first time they're really out on their own. And when things go sideways, they go sideways. In your case, you didn't have a swing coach that you're working with in college. How did you handle those times when your golf swing really wasn't doing what you wanted it to do, or you weren't playing the way you wanted to play?
Yeah, I've always kind of been a big field player. So growing up, I kind of just learned the game on my own, learned my swing, what worked for me, what didn't. I've never been like a technical player where I'm trying to hit all these different positions in my swing and things like that. So I just kind of just a field player. If something wasn't going right, I'd go to the range, kind of go back to what I did when I was younger, just hit some shots, try different things, see what worked out, what felt good. And then once I found something that felt good, I would just repeat that over and over until I saw results and then, kind of get out of a little slump.
That's cool. When you graduated from college, you went on, and now you've played professionally for a couple of years now. Winning in college and playing at the level you played is hard to do. And a lot of guys that we talk with who've played at that high level, like most recently, one that I can think of is Will Holcomb, who played really well in college at Sam Houston, and thought, coming out into the pros, like it'll be pretty easy. I'll be able to find my place, and it just takes some time sometimes. For you, what was your thought about what playing pro golf was going to look like? Did you think it was going to be really easy and that you were going to find some status somewhere, or did you think it was going to take a little longer?
First off, I gotta say Will Holcomb is one of the best dudes I know. He and I played together at second stage of Q school this year, and he's just such an awesome dude. He's so funny the whole time, so much on the line. We were cracking jokes, and he was making me laugh. And so I just want to say he's a really good dude. But yeah, pro golf. Coming out of college, I was actually planning on trying to do Canadian Q school the spring of my last year in college. But the site I got was the same week as the Mason Rudolph at Vandy. So it was a big tournament. I didn't want to, leave my team and go try to do Q school, so I stayed. So then that summer I stayed AM, played a few tournaments here and there, tried to do the USAM qualifier one more time, didn't get through, and then turned pro. And my first event was the Kentucky Open. So I was like, I've played well in the Kentucky Open as an AM. This is gonna be fun. First pro event, try to win, and didn't go as planned. I think we made the cut on the number because someone three putted on the last hole of the second round to like move me in. So uh, woke up like that morning and I was like, oh, I gotta get to the course. I didn't think I was gonna make the cut. Didn't play good, but that's kind of my first professional win. I think it was my worst finish in a Kentucky Open out of like 4 or 5 tries. So it's like, yeah, okay, we need to pump the brakes a little bit. We got some work to do. Professional golf's not going to be easy, and we knew that. So, going into the fall after I graduated, did Corn Ferry Q school. Got through pre-qualifier, first and second stage, made the final stage, and I didn't get there easy. First and second stage were tough. Barely got through. Made the finals. Played terrible at finals. Finished bottom of the field. Wasn't going to get in any events. And then that was kind of the COVID year where those 2 seasons, wrapped together in one. So I think out of like 45 events, I got in maybe 7 events. Didn't play great, but kind of got my foot in the door, learned a lot. So, professional golf wasn't as easy as I thought it would be, but it was nice to kind of get out there and, be able to learn and try to, play on a high level.
Speaking of Q schools, I believe that you've gotten through second stage of Q school 3 years in a row now. What is it about Q school that brings out the best in you, and why do you think you've had that success each time you've been in the second stage? Because I think you're 3 for 3 at second stage, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I've done the same course all 3 years. I've gone to Dothan, Alabama, played that course, and for some reason that course just kind of sets up good for my eye. I see it really well. And I don't know, I just kind of take all the pressure off when I'm at Q school. I feel like a lot of guys are real tense and they're trying so hard not to make mistakes. So I just kind of, it's hard to do, but I just try to go out there and just play free, trust my game. Dothan's one of those courses where you don't have to shoot, 10, 12 under to get through. If you shoot, between 4, 6, 8 under, you're probably going to get through. So just kind of play the course steady. You don't have to force anything out there and just play relaxed.
When it comes to playing in Q school, a lot of people said, as Cooper was kind of pointing to, second stage is one of the hardest tournaments that people have played in, just because the pressure on the line and because of the just because of what's on the line, as far as at least getting some sort of status somewhere, and how many guys are competing for so few spots, and especially the level of those guys playing. When it's come to preparing for playing in second stage and in Q school in general, what's your routine? Is there a routine that you have for preparing for Q school in particular, because you have so much time leading up to it?
Yeah, the first two times I did Q school, got a lot of good work in before it came up, and I really just focus on um, my tee balls. I make sure that I have a shot where I can find the fairway. You have to have like a fairway finder if something goes wrong. Obviously, I'm not just going there just hitting my fairway finder every shot, but you have to be able to hit that if you need to. Secondly, I work on my putting a lot. A lot of like inside 5 foot, 6 foot, the kind of ones you really have to make. If you come down the stretch and you're close to the number and you got a few 5, 6 footers, a little nervy. Those can be a little tougher than usual. So I'll make sure I work on those a lot to really get comfortable with them. And then wedges, I work on my wedges. That's probably the one thing I work on the most in my game. Kind of the scoring clubs, short par fours or par fives ready to lay up, things like that. Then, really work on the wedges so I can score better. Well, and then this past year, Q school came up really quick after the season ended, and I had a couple injuries and I was exhausted after the season. So I took a couple weeks off. So I really only had like a week and a half to prepare to get ready for first stage. So that was a little bit different. Kind of didn't get as much practice as I wanted to beforehand, but I kind of did a lot of things to get my body right. I was sore, I was tired, so I kind of rested and made sure that I was ready. And then when I finally got back into practicing before the event, I was hitting the ball so much better than I was during the season when I was fatigued and hurt. So I feel like if I would have kept practicing and not taken that week and a half off, I would have, I don't think I would have had the results I did at first stage.
Going back to that fairway finder you were talking about, so for that shot or you know whatever shot you choose, is that always with the driver, or do you manipulate tee height or ball flight or shot shape? What kind of different things do you do for a fairway finder?
Yeah, so I use my driver and I'll tee the ball down a little bit lower, narrow my stance a little bit. So I'm not, sometimes I'll widen my stance a little bit too much and I kind of get off balance. So I kind of narrow my stance and then I'll just kind of shorten my swing a little bit and hit down on the ball a little more instead of hitting up on it and just kind of hit like a little low bullet out there. Because usually I'm hitting up on it at like +3 or 4 attack angle. So I just kind of like make sure I'm hitting, almost like zeroed out with the attack angle.
And when it comes to wedges, you mentioned that you try to practice those. What does your wedge practice look like, especially when trying to get it primed for an event?
Yeah, so I work on like 60 to 120 yards and I just kind of hit like different shots and then I'll use like a TrackMan or something and I'll kind of like do a combine, but I'll do it on my own. So like I'll say I want to hit this 87 yards. I'll hit the shot and then while the ball's in the air, I'll say, that's right on it, a little bit short, a little bit long, and then I'll kind of see like, if I'm trying to hit 87 and I hit it just a little too good or something and it goes 90, then I'll say, yeah, I think I hit it just a little bit long, and then I'll look at the TrackMan and see, how far I hit it and make sure I know how far I'm hitting it when I hit it. So it kind of just like helps with the feel process. If I'm hitting an 87-yard shot and I think it's going farther, but actually goes shorter than I need, I got to work on that because my feel's off and I'm not getting the numbers dialed in. So I kind of work on that a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's a great testament. Kind of a lot of people, at least early on, I think it's been more dispelled, but people get concerned about the use of TrackMan's quads, all that kind of stuff. They say, oh, it's going to make you more technical. And you've said yourself, hey, I'm a feel player. I like to feel things. And using those tools as a way to refine your feel is a great way to really get in touch with what's actually going on and making sure that you're not, moving in the wrong direction one way or another. Are there other ways that you use the quad or the TrackMan in order to kind of refine your feel?
It's mainly just wedges. So I'll get on there with some irons and hit some shots, work on hitting some cuts or hitting some draws and just making sure that I'm doing everything right. And then kind of looking at the track man, and like, okay, yeah, the face of path was correct on the draw, this and that. But it's not like I don't go too deep into the numbers. I kind of just make sure that what I'm feeling is kind of adding up to what the numbers look like.
That makes sense. Well, we've talked a little bit about Q School, kind of talked about what things have been like for you so far. And what we talked about a little bit when we were off air, essentially, it's been good. You've had like sort of status out there, but there's been a lot of times, just like recently, right now, to date ourselves, it is January 15th, the first Corn Ferry event in the Bahamas is going on. And you got a message the other day. You were eighth alternate for the event, and you got bumped up to first alternate. You had to try to find a way there. Didn't work out to get there, but over the past few years, you've had a couple different occurrences of that happening where you're an alternate somewhere and you have to be ready to play for a tournament that week, and you won't know until Thursday morning whether you're actually playing. Would you kind of tell us about what that tension sort of is like, in that, you're there, you're trying to get ready for an event, but it could be like a total, not letdown, but it could be like, all right, I did all this work and I get ready and Thursday comes around and I'm not playing.
Yeah, I've had two very different scenarios of that situation. 2 years ago, I was up in Chicago, and I think so a couple days before the event, I was second alternate. Thought I had a pretty good chance of getting in. Got 2 days of practice rounds in. Uh, got fill the course, fill the greens, uh, and then I think the day before I moved up to first alternate. So then, Thursday morning before the event, I got to the course an hour before the first tee time. I warmed up as if I was playing, I was playing the first tee time. And then just kind of, the whole morning wave went by, warmed up 2 or 3 times, staying ready. Nobody withdrew. Went and got some breakfast, kind of had to stretch, loosen up, warm up again, went back to the range for the afternoon wave, warmed up a couple times. Nobody withdrew. So then, that was it. Didn't get in, had to drive back home. Luckily, it wasn't too bad of a drive. But yeah, it's disappointing. You're at an event, you're playing the course, getting ready for it, and then don't get in. And then, you see later that night where 9 guys withdraw to the first round because they shot 85 because the weather was terrible. So it's kind of frustrating, but it is what it is. And then another scenario this past year in Savannah, I was, 4, 5, 6 out. Didn't really think I had a chance of getting in. I actually played an off-site pro-am on Tuesday. So I drove up to Savannah, played in that, kind of get in the area. Maybe a few people drop out, and I can stay up in Savannah. No one did. Came back to Jacksonville. And then the day before the event, moved up to first alternate. So I drove back up to Savannah. My caddy was driving from Tampa, so he wasn't going to get there in time to play a practice round. It was late at night, so I just went out, walked the course. Um, so I didn't really get to play the course at all. Had no preparation on the course. Get a hotel room, get back the next morning, an hour before the first tee time. We're warming up, and then so my caddy and I, we were just on the left side of the range, just kind of, we were hitting maybe a ball every 2 or 3 minutes, just kind of slowly warming up, just kind of feeling it out, seeing what was happening. And then a rules official came over, said someone just withdrew, you're in, you tee off in 15 minutes. So we were like, we were excited that we got in, but it was like, all right, we got a quick little warm up, have no time to do anything. Um, and I remember I was warming up, had a couple of drivers, and I was so nervous, like I couldn't even put the tee in the ground just because I was excited. I was getting to play and kind of nervous. So get over the first tee, it was kind of everything happened in 15 minutes. So it was a little crazy, but we just kind of, stuck to it and played solid that week, and it kind of worked out.
So for something like that, where uh, you get there and you really don't have time to get out and do much of a practice round or anything like that, you said you walked the course that night. What were you looking at or thinking about when you were going over it?
I was kind of just getting a feel for the greens, where they could put some pins at. Um, just kind of making note on the yardage book on like, where you don't want to miss at, some of like the trouble on the course, things like that. Really was, I had like an hour to walk the whole course. I wasn't really getting too much in-depth information, but just kind of figuring out, what the course is playing like, that was really all I had time for.
So you wrap up the event. You said it went well, and you kind of talked about what preparation looks like when you're on the outside looking in and hoping to get in for a week where you're playing and everything's on track, etc. What does your tournament prep look like? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, so if you're, if you're going to play an event and you didn't play the week before, you're probably getting in Sunday night, Sunday, sometime around Sunday. So then the pro-am's on Wednesday, and I usually didn't play in the pro-am, so I pretty much just had Monday, Tuesday. So there's a few courses that I'd played before, and if I'd played it before, I'd probably play 9 Monday, 9 Tuesday, and then I have time to practice Monday and Tuesday. If I hadn't played the course, I'd play 18 on Monday, and then I'd play 9 on Tuesday, whichever side I thought was harder, and then practice, all day Wednesday. Um, but then if you played the week before, you're probably getting in on Monday. You might be able to squeeze 9 Monday and then play 9 or 18 Tuesday, and then practice Wednesday. So it just kind of depended on if you played the week before, if you played the course before, if you knew the course, things like that. But I usually don't try to play more than 27 holes before the event, just so I don't wear myself out, especially if you're playing a long stretch.
You mentioned that you were fatigued and injured this summer, and that's kind of one of those things that happens over the course of the season. We talked with Dawson Armstrong a while back about his injuries and what he's tried to do to minimize that. And part of what he'd done is he tried to put on extra weight, lift more, and then keep lifting during the season. What do you do to try to make sure that you just reduce the odds of injuries, but also b don't get fatigued through the season, or at least minimize that fatigue?
Yeah, I've kind of done the same thing this off season. I've tried to put on a little bit of weight, working out more, doing a lot more stretching. During the season, I had a neck injury, and it was during the 10-week stretch of events in a row. So, it was probably the worst time for it to happen, and I kept playing through it. And, just kind of making sure that I'm loose at all times, not going out and playing if I'm not, fully warmed up. Just little things that I should have been doing before. Nothing major, trying to work out a little bit more, stay more flexible, eat better. I've noticed, eating more healthy, I've got more energy throughout the day, so I'm not, I can practice longer and do things like that. So hopefully it carries over the season.
Talking about changes that you're making since being out there for a few years, what are some of the mistakes that you see newer pros make, and how do you try to avoid those mistakes?
That's a good question. There's a few things like, like what I did this past year. I wasn't really working out during the season. Uh, During like the 10-week stretch, I had an injury. I lost like 10 or 12 pounds. I couldn't eat enough. It was, every day it was like 90 to 100 degrees. It was hot. You're playing, 6 out of 7 days for 10 straight weeks. So, you just got to take care of your body better. You got to eat healthy on the road. You got to make sure you're stretching every day. Get some workouts in when you can. Just things like that. I feel like, most injuries can be prevented beforehand if you're, taking care of yourself. Obviously, things happen, but the ones you can prevent, very important to do that. And then, I feel like another mistake I made this past year. I felt like I played, there's a couple weeks I probably should have taken off. After my injury, I probably should have taken that next week off, reassess, try to get healthy, maybe take 3, 4 days off, and then get back at it. I feel like I could have, you know, kind of got rid of the injury, rested up, and then, played 4 or 5 more events after that in a row where I could have played a lot better. But when you have conditional status and you're so it's late in the year and you're kind of behind the eight ball and you got to have some good finishes. It's hard to be like, I need to take this week off, try to rest up, and then play well after that. You just kind of want to push through. But who knows what happened if I did take a week off? It could be the same results, could be better, could be worse.
Yeah, when there's limited opportunities, it's hard to know what the right thing to do is, especially when you're injured. I know neck injury can be really tough. Most golfers don't have that happen, or at least you don't having a neck injury. At least to me, I had one recently and couldn't play golf. Is like having a cold. You never realize how happy you are healthy when you have a cold prior to having cold until you get the cold. You're like, man, I miss actually feeling good. Same thing with the neck. Like you can't turn all the way around. Swinging club. I'm sure you had a limited range of motion. What was it like? One, playing through that injury, and two, what did you try to do to help it heal while still having to get out there and compete?
Yeah, so it happened in Wichita. It was the first round. I was on the range before the first round, and I was hitting these wedges, and I swung, and I felt like a little. It was almost just like I had like a crick in my neck, like it would loosen up in a day, maybe two, it'd be fine. So I played through it, and in Wichita it wasn't terrible, it wasn't that bad, but it lasted the whole week, and it kept getting just a little bit worse every day. And then next week, I can't remember if it was the next week or the week after, I was up in Maine for the event, and it kept getting worse. I was having trouble swinging, getting through the ball. I was losing like 5 or 6 miles per hour on my driver just because I couldn't fully swing. But luckily, they had really good physical therapists there. They had a doctor on site. So every day I'd go in there and they would give me lidocaine injections in my neck. They were doing stretches, they were doing heat pad, they were icing it, and they were doing dry needling in my neck, trying to loosen it up. And the lidocaine injections helped a lot, just kind of numbed the neck, and I was able to get through and play that week. But then the next week we were in Colorado. They didn't have any of that, so it kept getting worse after that. I tried to play, and before the second round, I was on the range, and I literally couldn't turn my neck at all, so I had to withdraw, and just went back home after that, and then did physical therapy for a couple weeks, trying to heal it up, and that kind of eventually helped. But I think rest is what I needed the most, and I played 3 or 4 weeks with an injured neck, and it didn't work out very well.
Especially all that traveling and sitting across, traveling across the country and just sitting there can't help the neck either at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if did you drive back from Wichita to Maine or did you fly between all those places?
No, so we flew from Wichita. I feel like there was a vent between Wichita and Maine. I can't remember, but we flew to Maine from wherever, and then from Maine flew to Colorado. So we had a few pretty long flights in that stretch.
I remember when I was caddying for Ashton, I was kind of looking at the season, the upcoming schedule, and I saw like 10 weeks in a row, and like like towards the end of that stretch, you're going from from Kansas to Maine back to Colorado, and I was like, I don't know if I don't know if I'm gonna be here for the whole season, but Ashton
Yeah.
Ashton made it work, and he ended up playing super well in Colorado. That's actually what got him his card.
Utah, he played well.
Oh, Utah. Yeah, my bad. Utah.
The Utah was the last event I played in.
So your neck got healed up, and we kind of talked about how that injury happened. For going forward, I imagine that's something that you're going to kind of pay attention to. I know, like to give you, it's kind of dumb, but the background of how my neck got hurt is, you turn your neck sometimes and you like move your head because you think, oh, I just got to loosen it up a little bit. I did that one time. Similar thing. It was just like, oh, like I got a little like burn on the back of my neck. I'll be fine. And then like 2 week for the next 2 weeks, I couldn't even move my head. I was going like that. And so now it's something that I pay attention to since it's healed up. For you, you're playing golf. You got to make sure that you're ready to go. Is there anything in particular you're doing to make sure that that injury doesn't reoccur?
Yeah, just a lot of stretches. There's several different neck stretches and like PT that you can use. I didn't really know how many different exercises there were for your neck, so I went to physical therapy. But Just kind of do those on a regular basis. Do it once or twice a day. Takes literally 5 minutes. So I just do that and haven't had any trouble with it since.
Very cool. So you're down in Jacksonville right now, right?
I am, yeah.
Okay. So you get to play with a lot of good players. I know there's a lot of good guys down there. Do you enjoy? I mean, I imagine you do. What's it like getting to play with a good group of guys week in, week out? And does it make a difference compared to, 2020 was that wraparound year where there was like, where you played out of 7 out of 44 events, and where for part of the year you were at home, and there's a good squad at home, but it's a little bit different than when you're down there. What's that been like?
Yeah, it's been really good. Practicing out TPC Sawgrass, if you can't get better at Sawgrass, you can't get better anywhere. So, it's nice playing out there, using the practice facilities, and, there's a lot of guys you can play with, and we get some pretty good games going. So, yeah, it's really good. I love playing with good golfers and kind of learn from them, see how they're hitting shots, see what they're doing, learn from their course management, how they're playing certain holes and things like that. So, it's really good. I love Jacksonville, great city, and a lot of good golfers to play with down here.
What are some of the things that you've picked up playing with those guys?
Um, so I probably play with Ashton the most, and learn a lot from him. Just kind of how he plays courses. I would say I'm a little bit probably more of aggressive player than he is. So it's but then like we'll go out, I'll play aggressive, shoot 3 under, play decent, and then he'll play conservative all around and shoot like 5 or 6 under. I'm like, how you doing that? You're not going for many pins out here. You're just kind of hitting the fairway, hitting the green, and then making some putts. And so just kind of learning, kind of how he goes about it and what he does. This has helped out a lot.
What do you think guys pick up from you?
I'm not really sure. I wouldn't. People ask me sometimes, like, what do you think like the best part of your game is? And I feel like I feel like I don't really have a best part of my game, but I don't really have a worst part of my game. I kind of just, you know, I just kind of, I don't know. It's hard to explain. Um, I feel like there's situations where, like my wedges are like the best part of my game. If I get the wedges dialed in, or the putter starts rolling, but like I wouldn't say I'm like consistently like really, really good at any part of the game. But I don't think I'm bad at any part of the game either.
I'd say you're pretty good at hitting the fairway. I'd say that's your. I mean, if I could, if I could have any part of your game, it'd be how straight you hit the driver.
Yeah, that's been a work in progress. We kind of got a little sideways this year, so we're kind of working on the driver now. But yeah, usually I hit the driver pretty good, but we're trying to work on that right now.
When we talked to Dawson Armstrong, he's another guy that I'm sure you and Ashton play with a lot. He's down at TPC. He said that something he learned when he played in a bigger tournament was that he needed to play for more money when he went back at home and play with his buddies. Is this something that you agree with? That playing for a lot of money at home translates to being able to handle the pressure in a bigger tournament? Or are you more of the mindset that you just need to work on your game and not worry about all that stuff?
No, yeah, I love playing for a decent size of money. I feel like you're playing with, you're in a foursome, you're playing a money game, gets up to like 100, 300 bucks or whatever. Just kind of like, it kind of get the nerves you do in a tournament. You don't want to miss a 6 footer to lose 200 bucks on the last hole. So, it's kind of good to get those pressure putts, actually get practice with them instead of going to the putting green and hitting a bunch of 6 footers with nothing on the line. So, yeah, I like when there's something on the line, whatever it is. I feel like it's good practice and I get a lot out of it.
Now, is that something that you would do, say, the day before a tournament in a practice round, or would that just be at home with your buddies?
Yeah, both for sure. Practice rounds, I love doing a little money game. Usually, we don't do anything crazy. It's like $5 or $10 birdies, $20 eagles, and then I always like to put out there. You got to pay a hole out. So if you hole out from 100 yards, whoever's in the group owes you 100 bucks. So it's a fun thing I like to do. Me and my buddy Alex Weiss, we played a lot of practice rounds together this past year, and we did a lot of money games. And so far, nobody's had to pay a big yardage. So I'm hoping that comes one day.
Nice to have a good group that you can play with and kind of consistently get comfortable with for practice rounds. When you go out to a course, we kind of talked about what your routine was as far as the week of the tournament, playing in practice rounds. When you finish up a tournament, however, you're done. It's Sunday. It's all said and done. And you look back on the tournament. Is there anything you think about in particular? Do you do any sort of like internal recap and say, here's what I did well, here's what I need to improve on? Do you write any of that down? What's your process for thinking about a tournament after it's all done?
Yeah, after a tournament, just kind of see what I did well, what I didn't do well, what I need to work on going into the next week. Just kind of you only got a few days between events if they're in a row to kind of make changes. So just I usually pick out like one or two things that I didn't do very well in the tournament before, work on those on Monday, and then play Monday, play Tuesday, see how it feels, and then if I need to do another assessment, then I have Wednesday to do that. So Wednesdays, I usually don't like to work on anything in particular on Wednesdays, more of just like getting in a rhythm, kind of just get comfortable with hitting the ball, different shots, things like that. But if I have to, I'll work on maybe one thing on Wednesday and just kind of get that dialed in for the week.
Growing up, did you play any other sports besides golf?
I played basketball and baseball a little bit, but quit those around my freshman, sophomore year of high school.
Okay, so you're a pretty athletic guy, it sounds like, and being able to play both of those sports, some things translate over to a degree. Is there anything that you kind of learned from those sports that you try to remember or apply to playing golf?
Honestly, like when I like growing up playing different sports, golf was always my favorite sport. It was always my best sport. So if anything, like I would use golf to try to be better at baseball or basketball. Like I would never, I don't know, it's funny, like people were asking me like, did playing golf or did playing baseball mess up your golf swing? And I would always say no, my golf swing messed up my baseball swing. I was terrible at hitting the ball. I was a pretty good fielder, but I was not very good at hitting baseball. So like, it's I don't know, it's weird. Like other sports didn't really translate to golf, but golf would try to help me play other sports.
Very cool. Well, the reason I asked that is because, sometimes guys learn things from different sports and can bring those over. And it sounds like for you, it was the other way around, which is a good thing to be able to take things from golf and apply them to basketball and other sports. But now you're playing golf full time. Are there things that you learn on the course that you try to take off the course with you?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, just kind of like you have to have a good mental attitude on the course, and I feel like it's the same for off the course. If you're on the course and you're getting mad after every shot, and you're cussing and you're throwing clubs, like when you get off the course and go back and hang out with your family or friends or whatever, like that can translate. If you're unhappy on the course, then you're probably going to be unhappy off the course. So just enjoy what you're doing, love what you're doing, just have a good mental mindset, and then that should translate on and off the course.
Is there anything in particular you focus on to try to make sure that you don't have that bad mindset? Because it's easy for people to slip into that, and it's easy to be the guy who plays bad and then comes home and is unfun to be around.
Yeah, so I think it was a couple years ago, Max Homa was in an interview, and they were talking about this, and he was like, "Yeah, when things aren't going well, you know, I acknowledge that. I would see that, I'm not happy. I might throw a club or this and that." And he said he just kind of sits there, relaxes for a second, and he'll like say three things he's thankful about in his life. And then, you say three things, you're like, man, those are great things. I got so much to look forward to. This round of golf is not the end of the world. And then that kind of settles him down. So, I really love that interview, and I think about it all the time when I'm on the course and things aren't going well. I just kind of sit back, relax, and just kind of think about two or three things I'm thankful for, and then relax and keep going.
That's a good attitude to have in golf, especially, but also just in life to recognize what we have. We've talked with several mental coaches, and gratitude and being not being complacent, but being satisfied and knowing who you are and allowing yourself to be um, accepting of that is a good thing. I think for all of us, one of the things that can be difficult now is looking back to ourselves when we were junior. As I said off screen, there were a lot of mistakes that Cooper and I made when we were juniors that now looking back, we're like, oh man, I wish that I hadn't made that mistake, or I wish I knew more about what I knew now. What sort of mistakes as a junior golfer, as we said, we said you were a good high school player, but we didn't mention as you were, I think, two-time Mr. Golf in Kentucky. Uh, what sort of mistakes were you making as a junior golfer?
I would say just my work ethic wasn't great as a junior golfer. Like I'd go out and play some, it'd be the summertime. I might take a whole week off and play baseball tournament or something. Just kind of, as a junior golfer, I wasn't like super, super dedicated with what I was doing. Kind of like in middle school, maybe freshman year of high school. It was kind of probably sophomore year of high school where I really started taking it serious and saw improvements in my game and, wanted to take it to the next level and play college golf and play professional golf after that. So it's probably my sophomore year of high school, kind of when things changed. I took it more serious.
Jumping back to the question or the topic that we talked about before, being thankful about things. What are when you talk about, and maybe these are too personal, but when you think about um, your round, like when you finish up a round, are there three things that you consistently think of that you're thankful for?
Yeah, for sure. My mom and dad, super thankful for them. They come and follow me, anytime they can. They've been huge supporters my whole life. Growing up in junior golf, I don't think they missed a single tournament. It's a little harder to travel to Bogota, Colombia, as a professional, but they try to come to tournaments when they can. Super thankful for them. Thankful for my fiance, just got engaged. Actually got engaged at final stage of Q school, so thankful for her and her supporting me. And then, just like the rest of my family, I got a lot of family and they're all behind my back and, they support me and they're always checking up on me. And, it's nice to have, my friends, they're always texting me before rounds, telling me good luck or after rounds.
Kind of going through all that, we talked about kind of the mistakes that you made as a junior golfer. And that kind of leads us to our last question, the question we ask every guest at the end of the show, which is if you could go back to yourself as a junior golfer and tell yourself just one thing, what would that one thing be?
I would probably, you know, it, it's hard because like at one point I would say, take it more serious growing up, practice more, um, in like middle school or, around that time. But then on the other hand, I'm like, I had so much fun playing basketball and baseball growing up. Like, I didn't start taking it really serious to like freshman, sophomore year of high school. And, I still had time to like get better and stuff like that. But, I would say just do what, do what you love. Like if you love other sports, like keep playing other sports. Um, don't put too much pressure on one sport or don't put too much pressure on golf and try to be, the number one junior golfer in the world as a freshman in high school. Like if that's what you want to do, then do it and have fun doing it. But like, don't put too much pressure on yourself as a junior golfer because you got a lot of time, after that of golf.
Very cool. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. If people want to reach out to you, find you on social media, where can they do that?
My Twitter and Instagram handles are at Sargent Golf 10.
As far as those tees that I talked about at the beginning that say Billy Tom Sargent the third, do you still have some of those left?
Oh, I probably have half a bag left. My mom, she got me those for Christmas one year, and I was like 11 or 12, and I'm not kidding. The bag was massive. There's probably 1,000 tees in there. So yeah, I probably still have 500 or 600 left.
Thanks for joining us today. Please do us a big favor and like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts so we can help others learn how to play better tournament golf. You can find us online at thetournamentcode.com, on Instagram at thetournamentcode, and on Twitter at tournamentcode. As always, Feel free to reach out to us at those places or email us at daniel@thetournamentcode.com and cooper@thetournamentcode.com. We hope you join us as we continue to dive deeper into what it takes to play elite tournament golf.